The spaceship's alarms screamed through the cockpit, red lights flashing urgently. Lachlan Hayes, a rugged Australian ex-pilot, frantically worked the controls, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Captain Lachlan Hayes, requesting immediate assistance." The communication system remained stubbornly silent, adding to his growing despair. Through the viewport, Lachlan saw the verdant, alien landscape rushing up to meet him. Towering, bioluminescent trees and unfamiliar terrain loomed closer. With a final, desperate yank of the controls, he aimed for a clearing. The ship's impact was violent, throwing him against the restraints as it skidded to a halt amidst a spray of dirt and foliage. Groaning, Lachlan unbuckled himself and staggered out of the wreckage, the acrid smell of burnt circuits filling his nostrils. He surveyed his surroundings, a dense, glowing forest under an alien sky. "Great. Just great," he muttered, rubbing a hand over his stubbled chin. "Another mess I've gotten into." His survival instincts kicked in. First, he needed to assess the damage. The ship was beyond repair, its communication system a charred ruin. He grabbed a few essential tools in his survival pack, slinging it over his shoulder. As he took his first steps into the forest, he heard rustling nearby. "Who's there?" Lachlan called, his voice echoing through the trees. He squinted into the foliage, his heart pounding. A figure emerged, humanoid, but different. Iridescent skin shimmered in the low light, large eyes reflecting his image. The alien stared at him curiously, a mixture of fear and fascination in its gaze. "Hello." Lachlan ventured cautiously. The alien cocked its head, responding in a melodic, unfamiliar language. "My name is Lachlan. I'm lost. Can you understand me?" he asked, hoping his tone conveyed peace. The alien hesitated, then gestured for him to follow. Intrigued and with little other choice, Lachlan complied. The alien led him through the forest to a village woven seamlessly into the environment. Homes made of vines and bioluminescent plants glowed softly, casting an ethereal light. The villagers, all similar to his guide, watched with wide-eyed curiosity. "Yara," the guide said, pointing to herself. "Yara." "Lachlan," he replied, mimicking her gesture. "Lachlan." Yara smiled and took his hand, leading him to an elder seated on a raised platform. The elder, with a crown of woven vines, regarded Lachlan with wise, wary eyes. "Elder Thal," Yara introduced, speaking slowly. "Sky Traveler." Lachlan bowed his head slightly. "Elder Thal, I mean no harm. My ship crashed, and I need help." Elder Thal spoke in their melodic tongue, and Yara translated. "Elder Thal says you are welcome here, but trust must be earned. Help us, and we will help you." A sudden rumble shook the ground, making Lachlan's pulse quicken. "What was that?" he asked. Yara's face darkened. "The mountain is angry. Elder Thal says it will wake soon." "Volcano?" Lachlan's eyes widened. "We need to move the village. I can help predict the eruption and find a safe place." The elder nodded gravely, and Lachlan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had found his purpose among these gentle beings. As he set to work, he couldn't shake the feeling that his arrival here was no accident. The real journey was just beginning. The ground trembled beneath Lachlan's feet as the village stirred to life. "The mountain will wake soon," Yara's voice echoed in his mind, urging him into action. He rose from his makeshift bed, shaking off the remnants of sleep, and prepared to face the challenges of the day. Elder Thal awaited him at the center of the village. The ancient leader's eyes held both wisdom and weariness. "We must begin preparations," Elder Thal said through Yara's translation, her tone somber. "Our people need to be ready." Lachlan nodded, scanning the faces of the gathered Asleal. Their iridescent skin glowed softly in the early light, and he felt a surge of responsibility. "I will help you," he promised. We need to find a safe place and ensure everyone can get there quickly. Yara led him to a high vantage point overlooking the village and the ominous volcano. There, she pointed to a distant ridge, is a place of safety. Good, Lachlan replied, mentally calculating the distance. We need to create a plan to evacuate everyone efficiently. He turned to Yara, whose eyes sparkled with determination. Can you gather the strongest villagers? We need their help to prepare. Yara nodded and hurried off, her graceful movements blending seamlessly with the environment. Lachlan began sketching a rough map of the evacuation route, his mind racing with logistics. Soon, Yara returned with a group of robust Asliel. Among them was Zaylor, his expression skeptical. You trust this outsider? Zaylor questioned, his tone challenging. Lachlan met his gaze steadily. I understand your doubts, Zaylor, but we don't have time for mistrust. We must work together if we want to survive. Zaylor's eyes narrowed, but he nodded reluctantly. What do you need us to do? Lachlan explained the plan, detailing the roles each person would play. They would create a series of signal fires to guide the villagers along the path to safety. It's crucial that everyone knows where to go and moves quickly, Lachlan emphasized. We don't have much time. The group dispersed to begin their tasks, leaving Lachlan and Yara alone once more. Do you think they'll listen? Yara asked, her voice tinged with worry. They will, Lachlan assured her, though uncertainty gnawed him. They have to. The day wore on as the village buzzed with activity. Lachlan moved among the Asliel, offering guidance and encouragement. He saw resilience in their eyes, a reflection of his own determination. As night fell, the signal fires blazed brightly, illuminating the path to safety. Elder Thal approached Lachlan, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have done much for us, Sky Traveler. It's not over yet, Lachlan replied, his gaze fixed on the distant volcano. But we're ready. A sudden, powerful tremor shook the ground, sending a ripple of fear through the village. It's starting, Yara whispered, her eyes wide. Everyone, to the path. Lachlan shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The villagers moved with a disciplined urgency, following the glowing trail of signal fires. As the first wave of villagers began their journey, Lachlan stayed behind, ensuring no one was left behind. He caught sight of Zaylor, helping an elderly Asliel to her feet. Their eyes met, and Zaylor gave a curt nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared purpose. The roar of the volcano grew louder, a deafening promise of destruction. Lachlan turned to Yara. Go with them. I'll follow once everyone is safe. Yara hesitated, then gripped his hand tightly. Be careful, Lachlan. I will, he promised, watching as she joined the stream of evacuees. With a final glance at the village he had come to care for, Lachlan steeled himself. The real test was about to begin, and failure was not an option. The ground beneath Lachlan's feet rumbled ominously as he surveyed the scene from the village outskirts. The roar of the awakening volcano echoed through the forest, a relentless reminder of the impending disaster. Lachlan's heart pounded as he watched the last of the villagers hurry along the path illuminated by signal fires. We're running out of time, he muttered, turning to see Yara at his side. Her wide eyes mirrored the urgency he felt. Is everyone accounted for? Lachlan asked, his voice taut with tension. Almost, Yara replied, scanning the village. Elder Thal and a few others are still preparing to leave. Lachlan nodded, his mind racing. Stay with the main group. Make sure they reach the ridge safely. I'll help the elder. Yara hesitated, then gripped his arm. Be careful, Lachlan. He offered a tight smile. You too. Rushing back into the village, Lachlan found Elder Thal and Zaylor helping an injured villager. The acrid scent of sulfur filled the air, making it hard to breathe. We need to move, now. Lachlan urged. Elder Thal nodded solemnly. Zaylor, take the others. I will follow. Zaylor glanced at Lachlan, his expression unreadable. Then he helped the villager to their feet and began guiding them towards the path. Lachlan and Elder Thal fell into step behind them, each movement calculated and deliberate. Lachlan, Elder Thal said quietly, "You have shown great courage. Our people owe you much." "Just doing what I can," Lachlan replied, his eyes fixed ahead. "Let's focus on getting everyone to safety." Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the ground, knocking them off balance. A fissure split open the path ahead, spewing ash and molten rock. Lachlan grabbed Elder Thal, pulling him back. "This way," he shouted, directing them towards an alternate route. They stumbled through the forest, the sounds of the eruption growing louder. Trees swayed dangerously, their bioluminescent glow flickering like frightened fireflies. Lachlan's mind raced with contingency plans, each one more desperate than the last. As they reached a clearing, Lachlan spotted Zaylor struggling with the injured villager. Without hesitation, he ran to assist. Together, they managed to lift the villager and continue their escape. The heat from the approaching lava became palpable, a fiery specter at their backs. "Go, go!" Lachlan urged, his voice hoarse from the ash-filled air. They pressed on, every step a battle against the encroaching destruction. Finally, they emerged onto the ridge where the rest of the villagers had gathered. Yara ran to meet them, relief evident in her eyes. "You made it." Lachlan nodded, breathing heavily. "Barely." Elder Thal stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the assembled villagers. "We are safe, thanks to our sky traveler," he said, his voice carrying a weight of gratitude. The villagers murmured their agreement, but Lachlan's focus was on the volcano. The ground continued to shake, and the sky was filled with ash. "We need to stay vigilant," he warned. "The danger isn't over yet." As night fell, the villagers huddled together, their fear tempered by the glow of the signal fires. Lachlan stood watch, his mind filled with the weight of responsibility. He felt a presence beside him and turned to see Zaylor. "You did well," Zaylor admitted grudgingly. "I misjudged you." Lachlan nodded, accepting the rare compliment. "We all did what we had to." The two men stood in silence, the bond of shared struggle forging a tentative respect. The night stretched on, filled with the distant rumble of the volcano and the quiet resilience of the Asliel people. As the first light of dawn broke through the ash-laden sky, Lachlan knew their journey was far from over. The real test would be rebuilding and ensuring the Asliel's continued survival. He glanced at the villagers, his resolve hardening. They had faced the volcano's wrath and survived. Now, it was time to secure their future. The dawn brought a fragile sense of calm to the ridge. The sky, tinged with the first light of morning, revealed the devastation left by the volcano's wrath. Lachlan stood at the edge of the encampment, surveying the smoking ruins below. His heart ached for the villagers, but his mind was already at work on the next steps. "We need to rebuild," Lachlan said, turning to Elder Thal and Zaylor. "The village is gone, but we have our lives and the will to start anew." Elder Thal nodded solemnly. "Your guidance will be crucial, Lachlan. We trust your wisdom." Lachlan looked at the assembled villagers, their faces etched with fatigue but also a resilient determination. "First, we need shelter. Then, we can think about food and water supplies. Let's find a suitable location to establish a new village." Yara stepped forward, her eyes bright with hope. "There's a valley not far from here. It has fresh water and fertile soil." "Lead the way," Lachlan instructed. "Zaylor, take a group and scout the area. We need to know if it's safe and how quickly we can move everyone." As the villagers prepared to relocate, Lachlan gathered the strongest among them to begin the journey. The trek to the valley was arduous, but the promise of a new beginning fueled their steps. The landscape, once ominous, now seemed to hold a spark of potential. Upon reaching the valley, Lachlan felt a surge of relief. The area was lush and teeming with life. A river cut through the center, providing a reliable water source. "This is perfect," he said, turning to Yara. "Well done." Zayler returned with his scouting party, confirming the valley's safety. "We can start here," he agreed, a hint of newfound respect in his voice. "It's a good place to rebuild." The villagers set to work, their efforts coordinated under Lachlan's guidance. Shelters were erected swiftly, using materials from the surrounding forest. The air buzzed with the sounds of construction and the chatter of hope. As night fell, a communal fire was lit at the center of the new village. Lachlan sat with Elder Thal, Yara, and Zayler, reflecting on their progress. "We've come a long way," Lachlan said, his voice tinged with both weariness and pride. Elder Thal smiled. "You have brought us through darkness into light, Lachlan. We are indebted to you." Lachlan shook his head. "We did this together. Your resilience and spirit made it possible." Yara leaned forward, her expression earnest. "What will you do now, Lachlan? Will you stay with us?" Lachlan looked at the stars, thinking of the message he had sent into the void. "I found a purpose here, but I also need to find a way back. If I can communicate with my people, I can help even more." Zayler, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "Whatever you choose, know that you have a place here among us. You are one of us now." The words warmed Lachlan's heart. "Thank you, Zayler. That means more than you know." As the fire crackled and the village settled into an exhausted sleep, Lachlan stood and walked to the edge of the encampment. He activated a small beacon, hoping it would reach the right frequencies. "This is Captain Lachlan Hayes. I found a new home here, but I need extraction. Coordinates to follow." He returned to the fire, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Whether rescue came or not, Lachlan had found his place. The Asleal's survival and their future were intertwined with his own. In the shadow of their trials, they had built something stronger. Lachlan Hayes, the stranded sky traveler, had become their guiding light. As the stars shimmered overhead, he knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, resilient and united.